and welcome to the Mads World Catfishing Special. If you aren't 100% sure what catfishing is, the term refers to a person who's intentionally deceptive when creating a social media profile, often with the goal of making a romantic connection. This trickery can be elaborate and may involve the use of fake or stolen photos, fake stories about their life, and sometimes made-up supporting networks as well. So what started this whole podcast adventure was an incident that blew up on Instagram where I was catfished by Tom, a mysterious stranger posing as a Premier League footballer in the UK who'd recently been signed by a London team. And the time has finally come to talk about my experience, alongside a really interesting story from my good friend Nat, who is living in Australia. I also recently spoke with MTV's Catfish UK, who are currently on the lookout for people who are potential victims of catfishing. So if you think this could be you, let me know and I'll put you in touch. Before we jump into my interview, I want to flag that we discuss mental health issues and there is mention of suicide in our conversation. If you or someone you know are struggling with mental health issues or thoughts of suicide, please reach out to someone for help. I've included a link to the NHS recommendations for help with suicidal thoughts in the UK, as well as Lifeline in Australia. Joining me up next is my good friend from Australia, Natalie, who has a catfishing story of her own. Hello, Nat.
Hello, Mads.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really, really good. It's so nice to talk to you. It's currently 10:47 in the UK at night. What time is it where you are?
It's 9:47 a.m. on Sunday.
Absolutely love that for you. And we're in lockdown, so I'm obviously just at home doing fuck all. So that's stunning. So let's kick off for the speed date round, just for everyone playing at home so you can get to know Nat a little bit better. So how did we first meet?
I don't remember the first time, but my first memory of you, I think we were about 10 years old, so when we were really young.
Yeah, we've been friends ever since, really. I think we had a few primary school experiences, and then we spent a lot of time together in high school, didn't we? And most of our later years in high school, so all of our first little romantic experiences with the boys in school and that kind of thing, and chasing after boys at parties.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely high school was when I think we got the closest and had the most funny experiences together.
The most memes. And
yeah.
So I know that we've spoken recently, but how long have you been single?
So about 2 years off and on.
Okay. And how many relationships would you say you've had?
I'd say 2 serious relationships, which were both about 4 years each.
Nice. And how often would you say that you go on dates?
I'm a serial non-dater, so...
A serial non-dater? On the dating podcast.
Yeah, so I hate going on dates. I'll do anything to get out of it. But I'd say that I've only been in my whole Tinder career, I think I've only been on 4 dates.
So how do you meet blokes, Nat?
It's a good question, Maddie. I don't know.
Where do they come from?
They just kind of pop into the air. No, I'd say I have met someone recently online, and he asked to meet up, and I was like, okay, but it's very rare that it actually happens.
Wow, so you're more of a talking online for years kind of gal.
Yeah, that's me. Yep.
Not actually going through with it. And in saying that, what's your usual type of guy then?
I'd say your typical. I like some tattoos, kind of dark hair, bit of a tan.
Yep.
Yeah, anything in between.
Beautiful. All right, well, I hope that's helped everyone get a good little scope on who Nat is. And this is our catfishing special episode, which I think everyone has been looking forward to for a long time and been begging me to do, because this is what started the whole podcast. Initially was a catfishing story of my own, but I wanted to hear your catfishing story that you've put together for us to tell everyone, and then I'll get into the nitty-gritty of mine, and we can do a little bit of question time as well.
Yeah, great. So I just had, your normal Tinder experience, match with this guy. His name was Rowan. There's no chance that Rowan will be listening, so it's okay if I say his name. But so I matched with Rowan, and, he looked cute. He had some nice pictures. He didn't have much of a bio, but we got talking. And after maybe 2 days, we exchanged Snapchats, which doesn't always, go down the right path. But he was fine. We continued our chat on there, and then eventually he sent me a photo of the side of his face. And at first, I was like, okay, he looks different, but I didn't say anything. We just still kept chatting. And then he sent me another photo, and it was his whole face, and he looked completely different. Straight away I knew that he'd been using fake photos, and he looked Nothing like them.
Completely different. How was it? Was it a weight thing? Was it a height thing, a hair color thing, or was it just a totally different guy?
Oh, totally different. I mean, the guy in the picture had brown hair. Rowan kind of had red hair.
Okay.
Just everything. Everything was very different. And so I called him out on it and I was like, you look different to your pictures. And then he fully admitted to it. He was like, yeah, I used fake pictures. No one likes me the way that I am. It's the only way that I can talk to girls. And I was like, okay, like it was a bit weird.
Yeah, and at this point you must be feeling pretty used as well because he's just totally tricked you.
Yeah, but it was such a weird feeling because he then kind of made me feel bad because he was like, it's the only way girls will talk to me. I'm so ugly. No one will talk to me the way that I am. And so he made me feel quite guilty. And then that kind of trapped me, I guess, because then I felt like I had to keep talking to him because I felt bad for him.
Yeah, and that's quite manipulative of him as well to sort of rope you in that way and make you feel somewhat responsible for his well-being or his mental health or something.
Oh, for sure. And it kind of continued on. Like, it didn't end straight away. He'd kind of keep messaging me and I was like, okay, like I'll reply, but only because I felt bad for him. And it got to the point where he'd asked me to meet up. He was like, you're so beautiful. I want to meet up with you. Will you please have a drink with me? And I was like, oh, like you used fake photos. I don't really want to. And the guilt kept going. He was like, no one wants to have a drink with me. And he'd send me a Snapchat. And it was, just him sitting in a bar having a drink. And he was like, can you please come meet me? And I was like, it was just red flag after red flag. But yeah, the whole time it was just him guilting me into talking to him pretty much.
That's insane. And this was one of the questions we had from listeners. But why do you think your catfish did what he did? And why do you think people would want to trick people into thinking they're somebody else?
Honestly, he was just lonely. Like, I felt so bad for him. And I ended up cutting him off in the end because it just got a bit too much. But even then I felt a bit bad because he's just a lonely person and he just wants someone to hang out with.
Yeah. And so that was my next question. How did it end? You just ended up cutting it off with him. How long did this go on?
So it probably went on for, I'd say, like 2 months or so. But it got to the point where his mental health was obviously very bad. And he actually talked to me a few times about ending his own life. And that's when it made me feel, I guess it's not a nice thing to hear about, but coming from someone that you don't know as well, you feel really pressured to help them. But
yeah, you feel pressured to help them. And I guess obviously you're not responsible for his actions or anything, but you would feel a sense of responsibility if anyone told you that, whether it was a friend or a colleague or even someone you don't know. I guess it's just the humanitarian in all of us that would want to reach out to someone who's in need of help mentally.
Yeah, so that's why I kind of kept it going, kind of helping him, but then it got to the point where I was like, this is a bit much for me. I don't know him. I can't support him the way that he wants support. And I just had to cut it off.
And at the end of the day, if it's detrimental to your own mental health and if it's someone you don't know, I mean, you don't know his ulterior motives. He could have been making it all up. It could have been putting you in a potentially dangerous situation as well. So I think you definitely did the right thing there. And in doing some research, so this kind of goes back to why people do catfish other people. In doing some research about catfishing and the psychology behind it for the podcast, I read some really great articles that suggested loneliness, as you said, struggles with social connection and dissatisfaction with physical appearance were some of the main reasons that led people to catfish. So I think that definitely aligns with everything you've said. And something else I found really interesting as well in reading all these articles was that it's quite common for some queer individuals to be known to catfish, as it gives them a sort of safe opportunity to explore their sexuality, which I think was really interesting. And if you aren't accepted in real life, perhaps people are sort of driven online to build those connections with others.
Yeah, for sure.
Others might use catfishing for revenge or as vigilantes. So there's people out there who consider themselves pedophile hunters and like pretending to be young kids and that sort of thing who lure in pedophiles. And I guess another huge thing to mention is that catfishing, it can be purely an attempt to get money. So as we know from like the TV show, there could be one guy out there, just like your guy, who's doing this to 20 different girls and then asking them to send him financial support or whatever. So other than that, I guess just boredom is a motivator for catfishing, which I'm assuming has happened to a few people during lockdown. And it can lead to like a slow spiraling addiction to it as well, if it's sort of something that's, rewarding for them or whatever they're hoping to get out of it.
Yeah, like I doubt that I was the only person that Rowan had done this to. I'm sure there was lots of other girls.
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you say that as well and can realize that, because I guess it's not something that you would have probably thought about when it was happening to you, but it's easy to look back on and think about all the reasons why he may have done what he did.
Yep, for sure.
Well, this brings us to my little catfishing experience, which I'm sure everyone is very excited for me to recap. And I don't know if you were following along with the footballer Tom story at the time, Nat, but basically
I definitely did.
Okay, good. So you'll be there to fill in any of the gaps. But I'll just start from the very start, because if you didn't follow me on Instagram at the time and you weren't part of everything that launched this podcast and the excitement of it all, hopefully I can give you a nice little story now. So the story begins when I see a guy called Tom on Tinder. He's an athlete at the Premier League, or so his job says. He's age 29, and his bio is, first of all, my apologies for not having a photo. I'm not hiding anything bad, at least. Kind of famous, and I would appreciate, if we meet, not to leak anything. And at this point, I just posted on Instagram and said, seems legit, haha. And people start rolling in. Talk to him, get him going. And I say, evening, Tom. He says, hey, how's it going? I said, pretty good. Have had a nice day yourself. Why no photos? He says, what did you do? And I'm not allowed to post any photos up until next week. I just came to London, signed my contract, and I'm not allowed to use any social media up until Friday. And I said, oh, I see. What team will you play for? And Tom says, a big one, with an angel emoji. I said, that's exciting. You can't say which team? He says, unfortunately, I can't. All the paperwork has to finish first. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. What's your Instagram? And he says, oh, you'll have to be patient up until Friday. And I'm from Europe. Hope that's enough to keep you going. And at this point, I'm putting all this on Instagram. Everyone is just loving it. This guy is clearly taking the piss. I mean, I don't even know who he thinks he's fooling.
He sounded pretty legit, though.
It does get more and more legit, and that's the intrigue in this story, because as it goes on, people started saying to me, Mads, what if he's real?
Yeah.
And like sending me footballer profiles. They're on like the football transfer network or whatever it is. And yeah, people are coming to me and saying, what if it's real? And I said, how long have you been a footballer? He says, for as long as I can remember. And I said, oh, that's quite a long time. He goes, around 10 years as a professional player. And I said, so if you've just been signed, what are you famous for? He says, I've played in other big leagues as well as in the Champions League. And I said, oh, that's quite a big league. He says, but I'm not as famous or talented as Ronaldo. And I said, who's Ronaldo?
Oh my God, Maddie.
Yanking his chain. I said, can you send me one photo? I won't leak it. And everyone's going, get a photo of this guy. We need to know who it is. He goes, I'm afraid I cannot. It's on the contract. The fine is quite big. But don't worry, I can say that I'm well looking. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, get to Friday. This guy's going to show me that he's a famous footballer and I'm going to become a rich wag. I'm going to live the life of my dreams with Tom, this stunning footballer who just happens to fancy me. So at this point, we've got a few thousand people on Instagram. They're all very invested in the story. I'm getting messages every day going, have you heard from Tom? Where's Tom? What's going on? So I follow up with him. And he says, ever been in Annabelle's? Which, for those playing at home in Australia, Annabelle's is one of the most, like, bougie clubs in London. It's where your David Beckhams go. People like him would even get knocked back. Like, it's super exclusive. I said, no, never been. In London? He says, yeah. He says, yeah. And I said, is it good? He goes, my manager says so, but I've never been. I'll make a party on Sunday. And he says, you were invited. And everyone's freaking out at this point because I've been invited to Annabelle's. A lot of people would kill to go there. Everyone at work's going, you have to go. Like, I've never even been, blah, blah, blah. And then everyone's saying, I know it's fake, but I just want it to be real so bad. I'm getting messages saying, why the fuck am I so invested in a potential catfish footballer in another country? And then I said, is your name really Tom? I forgot to ask. He says, no, it's not. And everyone across the internet starts losing their shit. They're like, what is real anymore? Is Tom his real name? Is he really a footballer? Then he follows up and he says, the party is now on Saturday. Same place. We speak tomorrow for details. Good night. I said to him, what are the details for Saturday? How will I find you to know what you look like? And at this point, everyone's saying, footy finals are on and I'm more invested in this. What are you going to do? I've got my little dress sorted. I'm ready to go to Annabelle's. And then Tom doesn't reply. And I'm sitting here thinking, what am I going to do if this guy doesn't reply? I've got thousands of people have put bets on, people are waiting to hear what happened to Tom. And he ghosts me, Nat.
He secretly broke your heart, didn't he, Maddie?
He broke my heart. I thought he was going to be the footballer of my dreams. I was going to live my best WAG life. I was going to be rich and I was going to have lots of WAG friends. But then he went AWOL and my heart was broken now.
You were almost the next Victoria Beckham. Almost.
I know. I was almost the next Victoria Beckham. And what was his end game? What was his end game, Nat? That's what I don't understand. Was he trying to get nudes? Was he trying to get money? We've just talked about all of the different things that people do and the reasons that they catfish others, and I just don't know what he wanted from me.
Yeah, it's like he seemed invested, like he either was tricking you really good or he actually did want to meet you.
Yeah, and I don't understand why he asked me to come to Annabelle's and made up that whole lie, and then like maybe he just had a better offer, maybe COVID hit and the party was cancelled, I guess we'll never know. And then in the end, my friend Nikki ended up paying £3 for Tinder Premium to see if he'd read the message, and he left me on red, Nat.
Oh no, Maddie.
I can't even deal. I know, but at least the podcast was born out of the experience, and I think it's all on my Instagram highlights on my main account if anyone wants to go and relive the story. But I guess the end of my catfishing story sort of brings us to our Left on Red segment, which is aptly named because it makes everyone sort of question their surroundings and question their universe when you get left on red. And our first question that we've received from listeners is, how did it make you feel to get catfished by someone? And so I guess yours was more of a serious story, Nat. So I'll throw this one to you first of all. How did it make you feel to get catfished by Rowan?
Yeah, so I mean, at the beginning, I wasn't that invested in him. So I didn't really take it to heart. I didn't care. But once it kind of spiraled into the whole mental health thing, it kind of got to me, and then it made me feel quite down, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess definitely speaking to someone and someone that you don't know but feel quite responsible for can have detrimental effects to your own mental health, can't it?
Oh, yep, 100%, sure.
After like chatting about everything and all the reasons that people do catfish others, do you think you can sympathise with him at all?
I can. I think what we were talking about before, his loneliness, I felt quite bad for him. He just wanted a friend. He wanted someone to hang out with, so I can definitely understand why he did it.
Yeah, and it is quite sad, really, and I guess all the reasons, apart from fishing for money, they kind of just make you really realize all the different things that people are going through and the different things people are driven to when they're experiencing these kind of mental health issues.
Yeah, the extent that they will go to get, just a friend or to find a partner.
Yeah, and even if it's not looking for a friend, it's just looking for attention. Like, he could have ended up arguing with you, or you could have had a really negative response, and he probably just would have been happy to speak to somebody.
Yeah, just someone to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. So our next question is, have you heard about any catfishing trends? So I've done a little bit of online research and reached out to everybody, and some of the trends I've heard of are hatfishing or fatfishing.
I can say I've never heard of either of those.
So this one person who I put a Facebook post in one of the many groups that I'm in on Facebook for the podcast to do some research, some social listening, and someone said that she was hatfished by a guy who would wear a hat because he had a hairline like a Nintendo 64 controller.
Oh, that's great.
I was like, that is so savage. So many people came out the woodworks and said, yep, I've been hatfished by a guy who was just wearing hats in his profile and ended up being bald. But I mean, that's day one stuff. If a guy's wearing a hat in all of his pictures, you can safely assume that he's got no hair or a receding hairline, which isn't a bad thing. And it's not necessarily my thing, but I mean, you can safely assume that. You're just being stupid if you've been hatfished.
You know what? I think I've been hatfished when I think about it. I did meet up with a guy, and
really?
Every time I saw him, he was wearing a hat. I'm not kidding. Like, in every situation, he would have a hat on.
Oh my God. And then fatfishing is obviously someone who has used older photos of them and then or used older photos or used different photos where maybe they look skinnier or whatever. And yeah, they're actually quite overweight, which I think kind of goes back to that dissatisfaction with physical appearance reasons for becoming a catfish.
That also happened to me. I can confidently say I was fatfished.
What happened?
So he was young in his photos. He looked quite cute, slim, bit muscly. I met up with him, and he was, I mean, nothing against, people that do this, but he was quite overweight. but it took me by surprise because I was going off his photos, which were obviously a couple of years old. And then I've gone to meet up with him and I was like, oh, like he's the same person, but he looks completely different.
Nat, honestly, I can see why you don't like dating. This is not going well for you.
I don't like it. I mean, these 2 dates, the hatfishing and the so the hatfishing and the fatfishing are 2 of the dates. I've only been on like 4. So that's like a 50%.
That's 50%.
I don't have a good record.
Well, my next question is, someone said to us, how common would you say catfishing is in Australia versus the UK? And I can see from your experience, it's really common in Australia.
Yep.
Well, I think in England it's more common than people think, because I see a lot of people on social media complaining that their images have been used on fake Instagram profiles and like asking people to report them and that kind of thing, because like I don't know what these people are hoping to do with these profiles, but it's probably just people using more attractive people's photos to sort of engage with other people. But once someone actually used my photo as their profile photo on Instagram, and I had to message them and be like, bro, that's me, can you delete that? And then they just blocked me. I was like, sweet. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about this. But another guy who's an Aussie guy living in London who was quite handsome got in touch with me to tell me that his photos and his name were being used by someone else on a Grindr profile. So this meant that because his name was being used, he received all these like thirsty Instagram and Facebook messages from really thirsty gays that were kind of looking for a quick shag. And he was like, God, what are you talking about? I'm not even on Grindr. I'm not even gay. Yeah, so strange. But so our last question is, what are some red flags people can watch out if they think they are being catfished? So what would you say you've learned from the experience, and what help can you offer to other people?
I feel like I've definitely got like a good catfish like vibe now. Like if I'm scrolling through Tinder or something, I can just look at someone and be like, you're not real. You can just, I don't know, you just after time, you just pick up like a bit of a radar.
Yeah.
If they don't have like a bio or like they only have 1 or 2 photos, I'd be like, no, like there's something going on there. But if they have like a long bio, they have, 5 photos, it kind of makes you feel like they're more likely a real person, I guess.
For sure. And I think just some of the obvious red flags people can watch out for. So if they refuse to video chat with you, and like I think FaceTime now is so normal from COVID, everyone's FaceTiming, like we FaceTimed right before this call. It's so normal to ask someone to have a quick FaceTime, and if they're reluctant to do that, you can get a little bit suspicious. And like equally, if they never send you a selfie in the moment, or if they do, it's not of their face. So if it's of like their feet or just something they're doing, like if it's never actually of them. I think another red flag that you can definitely watch out for is if the people in your life that you trust seem suspicious of that person, or if they let you know they're not sure about them. So I think sometimes it's hard to know what your gut is telling you when you're in the midst of a situation, and the people around you might have a better objective view from their position. So yeah, I guess if the people in your life are sort of telling you that person's giving off bad vibes, maybe it's like a good idea to just listen to what they're saying and think about it yourself. And yeah, I think the final three red flags I'd say is they're ridiculously good looking. So traditionally,
that is a red flag.
It's a red flag because I think typically really attractive people, like model like level, celebrity level hot people, don't need to be on dating apps because they're probably getting enough attention elsewhere.
I literally always think that if they're really good looking, I'm like, why are you here? You're surely not real.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, another idea you can do as well is trying a reverse Google image search. So I can put a link in the bio on how to do this. But basically, if you save one of their pictures and then put it into Google, it will show you all of the places where that picture is on the internet. So potentially if they're using like a model's photo or whatever, it will come up and you can find out that way. I think all of the FBI girls out there listening to this have definitely tried a reverse Google image search. I know I've done it in the past, but the obvious final red flag as well is if they ask you for money. So I think that's kind of like at the very end stages of being catfished, and you'd kind of be like, okay, I know what's going on here. Thank you so much for joining the podcast, Nat, and this has been awesome chat, and it's been super fun to catch up with you and hear all about your catfishing story. Was there a note you wanted to leave it on?
Oh, look, I'd just say try and grow your catfish radar. What we were talking about, you can kind of pick them from afar once you've had a bit of experience. So, just work on that radar. And so, find the real ones, not the catfish, the fatfish, or the hatfish.
Love that. And build up your catfishing radar muscles, I suppose.
Yeah, work it out like a gym.
Like a gym, yeah. All right, well, I'll chat to you soon, Nat. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Mads. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Nat. Please let me know on my Instagram. It's @madsworld.mp3 if you have any stories or thoughts of your own to share. And once again, if you are struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to one of the services I've linked in the episode description. Love and elbow taps. Peace.